Welcome back to the Hoops 365 podcast. I'm Bryce Hemseth, and I'll be your host. Today we'll be talking about all the teams and players to monitor ahead of the trade deadline next Thursday. We will also be diving into potential trades. Let's get started. The Atlanta Hawks have expressed interest in possibly trading Clint Capela and DeJounte Murray. Teams interested would be the San Antonio Spurs, the Los Angeles Lakers, the New York Knicks, the Houston Rockets, and Sacramento Kings. Here's what two trades could be for the San Antonio Spurs. They could potentially trade Devontae Graham and a first-round pick for DeJounte Murray. They could also trade Doug McDermott and 2 first-round picks for DeJounte Murray. They have expressed a lot of interest in wanting DeJounte Murray back in San Antonio where he was to begin with. And DeJounte Murray has mutual interest in returning. Let's look at the LA Lakers' potential trades. They could potentially trade D'Angelo Russell in the first-round pick for return of DeJounte Murray. They could also trade D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, Taurean Prince, and the first-round pick for Clint Capela and DeJounte Murray. The New York Knicks could potentially trade Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, a first-round pick, and a second-round pick for Clint Capela. Evan Fournier is a player to monitor due to the size of his contract. He earns about $18 million, and it's a very tradable contract. Here's another trade for the New York Knicks. They could trade Evan Fournier, Isaiah Hartenstein, Quentin Grimes, and a first-round pick for Clint Capela. Here are some potential trades for the Houston Rockets. They could trade Jeff Green, Victor Oladipo, Jason Tate, and a first-round pick for Clint Capela. They could also trade Dillon Brooks and Jeff Green and 2 first-round picks for Clint Capela. The Sacramento Kings could look at trading Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles, and 2 first-round picks for Clint Capela. They could also trade Harrison Barnes, Davion Mitch, and Chris Duarte in a pick swap with the Hawks for Clint Capela and a pick swap. That's it for the Atlanta Hawks. Now let's look at the Chicago Bulls. They have a lot of options moving forward, but their most likely move would be moving Zach LaVine. Here are some potential trades for Zach LaVine. The Golden State Warriors could trade Chris Paul, Jonathan Kuminga, and the second-round pick for Zach LaVine. Another trade they could potentially do is Klay Thompson and Moses Moody for Zach LaVine. The LA Lakers also have expressed interest in Zach LaVine, and a potential trade from the LA Lakers could include D'Angelo Russell, Rui Hachimura, Taurean Prince, and a second-round pick for Zach LaVine. Another trade they could do is D'Angelo Russell, Austin Reeves, and Dave Vincent for Zach LaVine, but the LA Lakers remain hesitant in trading Austin Reeves. The Sacramento Kings could offer Harrison Barnes, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and a second-round pick for Zach LaVine. They could also offer Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles, and Joseph Venzlua, and Chris Duarte, and a first-round pick for Zach LaVine. Let's look at the Golden State Warriors. The Golden State Warriors are a team that is kind of confusing. They have a lot of options they could do trade-wise, but they haven't been committed on one direction or another direction. They could either get some young guys to be prepared for a rebuild around Steph Curry, or they could build around Klay, Draymond, and Steph Curry. But here's my potential trade for the Golden State Warriors. I have them willing to trade Chris Paul, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody. Here's are the teams that could be interested: Indiana Pacers, Dallas Mavericks, Toronto Raptors, and Washington Wizards. Here's a potential trade between the Indiana Pacers and Golden State Warriors. The Indiana Pacers could offer Jalen Smith and a first-round pick for Jonathan Kuminga. They could also offer Isaiah Jackson and Ben Shepherd and a first-round pick for Jonathan Kuminga. The Dallas Mavericks could offer Seth Curry, Derrick Jones Jr., and a first-round pick for Jonathan Kuminga, but they could also offer Dante Exum, Marquise Morris, and 2 first-round picks for Jonathan Kuminga. It would be interesting to see Seth Curry and Seth Curry on the same team. The Toronto Raptors could trade Derek Tempo and a second-round pick for Moses Moody. But they could also trade Jordan Nwora and a second-round pick for Moses Moody. Here are some potential trades for the Washington Wizards to the Golden State Warriors. They could offer Isaiah Livers and a second-round pick for Moses Moody. They could also offer Anthony Dill and a first-round pick for Moses Moody. Let's take a look at the Indiana Pacers. The Indiana Pacers has expressed interest in trading Buddy Hield. Here are some potential trades that could land Buddy Hield on a new team. The New York Knicks could offer Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes for Buddy Hield. They could also offer Evan Fournier, Ryan Archino, and a second-round pick for Buddy Hield. The Orlando Magic has also expressed interest in Buddy Hield. They could potentially trade Derry Harris and Joe Ingles for Buddy Hield and a second-round pick. Another trade option would be Darius Harris, Truman Oki, and a second-round pick for Buddy Hield. The Golden State Warriors could be a team to trade for Buddy Hield due to his expiring contract. A potential trade between the Golden State Warriors and the Indiana Pacers could be Andrew Wiggins for Buddy Hield and a second-round pick, or Gary Payton, Kevon Looney, and Corey Joseph for Buddy Hield and a first-round pick. New York Knicks have expressed interest in trading Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes. Teams interested would be Detroit Pistons, Atlanta Hawks, Washington Wizards, and the Utah Jazz. Let's look at the Detroit Pistons options to trade for Evan Fournier and or Quentin Grimes. The Pistons could trade Joe Harris and Marcus Sasser for Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes in a second-round pick. They could also trade Bojan Bogdanovic and Marcus Sasser for Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes. The Atlanta Hawks could trade Bojan Bogdanovic and Bruno Fernando for Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, and a second-round pick. Another trade between the Hawks and Knicks could be DeAndre Hunter and Wesley Matthews for Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes. The Washington Wizards could trade Kyle Kuzma to the New York Knicks for a return of Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, and a first-round pick. The New York Knicks have expressed interest in wanting another point guard, so the Washington Wizards could also offer Tyus Jones, Patrick Baldwin, and a first-round pick for Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes. The Utah Jazz could trade Kelly Olynyk, Talen Horton-Tucker, and a second-round pick for Evan Fournier and Quentin Grimes. Another potential trade between the Utah Jazz and New York Knicks could be Jordan Clarkson for Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, and a second-round pick. I think that trade could really benefit both sides. The San Antonio Spurs have expressed interest in trading Doug McDermott, and the Minnesota Timberwolves seem to be highly interested in Doug McDermott. Here are two potential trades between the San Antonio Spurs and Minnesota Timberwolves. Trade number 1 has Naz Reid and Wendell Moore Jr. going to San Antonio for Doug McDermott and a second-round pick. Another trade could be Kyle Anderson and Shake Milton for Doug McDermott and a first-round pick. The Toronto Raptors will be a team to monitor ahead of the trade deadline. They have already made 2 significant moves, and I wouldn't be surprised if they make more trades ahead of Thursday. 2 players to monitor would be Bruce Brown and Dennis Schroeder. The LA Lakers seem to be interested in both. Here are 2 potential trades. D'Angelo Russell, Dave Vincent, and a first-round pick for Bruce Brown, or Dave Vincent and a second-round pick for Dennis Schroeder. The New York Knicks would be another team to monitor for Bruce Brown. They could trade Evan Fournier, Quentin Grimes, and a second-round pick for Bruce Brown, or Evan Fournier, Jericho Sims, and a first-round pick for Bruce Brown. The Washington Wizards remain committed to a full rebuild. This rebuild is a long-term rebuild, and they could trade anyone on the roster, but the most likely trade would be Kyle Kuzma, and the Dallas Mavericks would be the most interested if Kuzma would become available. Here's our 2 potential offers from the Dallas Mavericks. Grant Williams, Rashawn Holmes, and Dante Exum, and a second-round pick for Kyle Kuzma, or Tim Hardaway Jr., Oliver Maxier Prosser, and Jaden Hardy, and for Kyle Kuzma. That's all the potential trades that could happen, and I'm sure that a couple of those may happen, but I'm sure most trades will not be the ones I just said. But the trade deadline will be really, really fun to monitor ahead of Thursday. All of those trades have been approved by the trade machine. As always, have a great day and follow all Hoops 365 social media. Thank you.